AI is making job market weird. And hey, there we go. We are live now on everywhere. Howdy, I'm Trevor, founder, CEO of CrowdTamers. Who are you, Tom?
I am Tom Nasser, co-founder and CEO of X-Ray Tech, the workflow company.
The Workflow Company. There you go. We're here to talk about a couple different things. One is the market is weird, and it's weird in ways that we don't even know yet. Although I do feel a bit like a caveman using a pocket nuke as a hammer and not aware of what's about to happen. And so a lot of my expertise, go to market, has gotten weird. I want to talk briefly about that. Tom, you're in workflow automations, and that's getting weird. We talk a bit about that, and then we can see where the topics take us. We got half an hour. We're going to go blazing through this as fast as we can before Tom and I both have to hop. So, one thing I thought worth talking about here, and something that I imagine people listening here might be familiar with. So I've been selling go to market and marketing services for, I mean, 20 years, but as an agency for the last two and change. And this idea of uh, the common funnel, the way you go through market, is it's I think quite well known in the SaaS space. They call this pirate metric because it goes R, and that's AARR. And hey, I didn't make the name up. And this is both a useful tool, but also it is increasingly becoming a challenging tool to use as a mental model. I'm working right now with some tier one marketing consulting agencies and pitching them around the problems that come when you stick to this too slavishly and you say things like, hey, as I do this, right, I've got all these gaps where I'm losing customers. And I say, marketing tackles here, customer success tackles here, sales tackles here. And this feels like a very simple model. But what we're finding increasingly twofold. One is all of these stages are ending up blending in a bit. And while you still need to market and pay attention and think about each of these steps individually, it's not unusual to find people in the awareness phase are referring you despite having never used your product, activated your product, or paid for your product. Because here in the AI space is a good example. Things are moving so fast. You don't necessarily have time to try out the newest thing before you go, oh, hey, that sounds cool, and share it. And in every industry, as we're picking up AI and folding it in, it begins to become so complex that you'll recommend stuff and not know if it's really a tool that works as well as the marketing on the tin says it does, but you heard about it, so you shared it. And as you're building in a model, things like attribution are getting weirder. Things like how I understand how to tackle all these problems gets weirder. One thing I've been having some success with here is when I'm trying to diagnose the problems of a business of the go to market. You start by understanding, like getting background information, coming up with a framework on how to improve it, and then doing something to improve it. Which, if I kind of look here, right, I map out even the rough idea of I'm trying to capture somebody or engage them or monetize them, and then I throw in the idea of inform and strategize and act as a problem solving solution. Even something this simple ends up with like this complex a matrix of the problems you need to solve. And one of the things I'm trying to do is to help founders understand one, the simple version of like, hey, let me go through capture and solve this, but two, understanding it's a big picture and what you're doing up in the top of your awareness funnel probably affects revenue, referral, and retention directly in ways that can be hard to measure. And what I've been finding is a valuable discussion to have with prospects and clients and people I'm teaching is this is increasingly an interwoven network and less a discrete series of steps. I mean, Tom, you're kind of in the bottom end of this funnel as it's laid out, but you also know what's coming in and around here in the bottom of this should be affecting decisions that are made up at the top in a way that maybe wasn't true as much in the past.
Totally.
Um, so that's I used to sell on. I think I have this slide here. I used to do all my selling on this slide, the simplicity of this. Every product you sell, you need no audience, problem, and offer, and that's all I had to communicate to people. And as the market's gotten weirder, people want something a little more sophisticated as part of their discussion in the sales cycle. And so going to something like this, which to me is already busy enough that I hate it, but it does convey this is a more complex and subtle thing. As you are, anybody listening here, thinking about how do I sell mid-high ticket? Right? What am I doing to get people comfortable with me? What used to work, which is simplicity, now instead, I think speaking to the rigorous process to distill complexity into something actionable is what's working way better for me. I closed 3 new clients on Friday. All 3 of them, I kind of walked through this instead of my more usual deck, and I'm finding it works way better. So I'm sharing this with you and all the listeners as, hey, how can you both show the complexity of what you're doing and still simplify it so that it is actionable right away? And I think that is speaking to a broader issue of everything's moving fast. Everyone is scared right now. What do we do? And we can talk about workflow automation, which is your thing, and what's moving fast for you.
Well, Trevor, before we transition that, I want to say congrats on the new business.
Thank
If you
you.
want to
Yes.
rearrange the squares here, but the yeah, congrats on the new business. And do you think it's because those particular clients are feeling like it's a more bespoke solution versus a cookie cutter type process that you're putting them through? Is it the uniqueness, or like what do you think got off the maybe into a yes?
So I think it is one. I did not used to message very much about later in the funnel, right? It was you got to solve awareness first. If you don't solve that, you're screwed. And instead saying, look, this is part of the bigger picture. And one, I co-developed this whole slide, this approach with a buddy of mine, David Isaacs, in Singapore. And so he thinks in extremely complex interwoven loops, and I think in simple bulleted lists because I'm not as smart. And kind of coming together on this and being able to say, look, this is the complexity of the full journey, but also how do I take out a chunk and say,
Mm.
this is what you have to address now, but there's a rubric you can go through to solve all of these problems. It continues to show depth of expertise, and it continues to show, look, this is the journey we all have to take. Every journey starts with, you've launched your company and ends with you've died of old age or some horrible accident. In the middle is where it gets interesting. And so showcasing you've got this system that will get you through all of those signposts on the way to senescence and death seems to get people willing to have further conversations.
That's super interesting. Happy to hear it. On the weirdness of the workflow automation market right now, right? There were a couple topics that didn't make it into this live stream. One being, the fact that you can just tell an AI now to make you a application, and it just
It
codes
just
and
does.
deploys and does all the things that us no coders don't want to do, which is nice.
Yeah.
And there's some other just incredible AI advancements that have just happened in
In
the
the
last
last
week.
two
In the
weeks.
last
2
2 weeks,
weeks
and it's
since we last
jarring.
talked.
It's jarring and overwhelming in a lot of different ways. And FOMO is real, and it's crypto 2017 all over again. But
But faster
faster and actually delivering value.
and
So
useful. That's a nice bonus.
the weird thing about the workflow automation space right now is there's a couple of knowledge gaps, and there's a couple of just really good use case examples, and I think in the moment, there's like a lot of urge to like rush towards the latest AI thing, and I'm starting to see a lot of pushback on actually implementing AI in the business, which I think is the right side of the fence to be on. Right? If you're just like, yeah, let's add AI will do everything for me, and like it'll be great, and it's just not there yet for everything in that general capacity. But the pattern that I'm seeing a lot right now is that uh, a person in an industry or a company in a niche, especially a trade, especially, um, call it a plumber, call it a roofer, call it a septic system installer. Doesn't matter. Some trade. Those industries are woefully underserved when it comes to an intentional design of their internal systems. So, you see law firms typically right now as a really good target, right? Summary legal is not a bad target for us with trying to increase, the software usage inside of a space, an industry. But particularly for trades, those industries are ripe for disruption, are ready to adopt the new tool. And it's amazing to see how much they actually get done right now without any automation at all. Like, there are just absolute, like, people work really hard to make those businesses work, and I have a ton of respect for like trades based businesses right now that are trying to do digital transformation, right? Trying to do the thing that these big companies are trying to do, which is digital transformation. And the opportunity in trades, I think right now, is in creating these hyper niche systems and series of automations and products that are for the roofer, right? That are for the septic system installer, that are for whatever it is, because there are thousands of them around the world. They are not going to be replaced by AI. Right, that's not happening. You're not having a robot walk in and install a toilet. Like, that's just not going to happen right now. So their industries are very, very safe from this wave that we're seeing, and the attitude is ripe for adoption of an Airtable system or a Notion system or whatever that will allow them to do e-signatures, right? Like, do things that are like kind of basic, in the grand scheme of things, but like also revolutionary for their particular workflow and where they are right now. Yeah, Trevor, you're still muted, but please jump in. I'm not sure if I can't hear you or if you are muted. Well, while Trevor is figuring out his microphone here, there is another distinction that I did want to make about the workflow designer, the term that we're even talking about right now. So, in a lot of industries, you're seeing department specific operations roles. In marketing, you see marketing ops. In sales, you see sales ops. In whatever other department, you see this department operations role. And that typically that operations role is being adopted by a senior person in that department because they know how the work should get done or they think should get done. But in most organizations, that operations or that department specific ops role is still saddled by data silos, and they don't have access to information. You're good now. They don't have access to information that they need to actually make these decisions. So we think at X-Ray that all of these department specific operations roles actually are going to roll up into a workflow designer whose sole purpose is to design the way people get work done. And they're the ones that need to understand the lines between the tools you use, automation, and where AI can actually be helpful. So thanks for letting me squeeze that in, Trevor. Go ahead. I'm curious.
Thanks for vamping while I had no audio. One of my new clients I signed on Friday is in exactly the space you were talking about. They do contract flow
Hmm.
for businesses where contracts are important to the business, but not the point of the business, right? They're not doing it for lawyers. They're doing it for physical goods industries that need contracts. And that brings an interesting point up, which is the US shifted from a manufacturing economy to a service economy because you can't export service work. And
Mm.
I think we're increasingly going to find white collar work you can now export to the cloud,
Hmm.
but you still can't export the guy who has to put a roof on your house. And until we reach the point where we have robots that have a whole day's charge, or at least, 6 hours charge, and independent pathfinding and the ability to hold and manipulate tools, and we are at least 20 years away from that. Like, you've got that is still a sector, but we're also reaching a point where you and I may well discover in 5 years' time everything that we could do is now done away with. And it's a good thing that I have a hobby in woodworking because at least AI can't build murder sheds.
Yeah, but the funny aspect to that whole thing is like the the fact that we could get outsourced to the cloud, right? You see people online right now selling prompt guides, right? That they probably had ChatGPT write for them, right?
Yes.
It's just this leveling up of like, oh well, let's go one layer higher, one layer higher, one layer higher, but at the end of the day, the reason that we keep coming back to this concept of a workflow designer is that people want to interface with people, and to simply help guide them through their day, navigating all their tools, navigating the processes that actually make the company tick, like that type of critical thinking and process design and intentionality, I think is going to be real hard to automate or abstract away, because at the end of the day, you're not gonna engage in a relationship with an AI, at least hopefully not right now, right? Like that's going to be sales are going to happen person to person, and communication and culture at your organization happen person to person. So that intentionality is just going to need a little bit more massaging before that part gets outsourced again.
We're a ways away. That's true. And you brought up a bit, right? How you're shipping some new stuff. You're building new things with workflow automations. I know because you and I have talked aside from this live stream. You've got some new tools you developed. Tell me about them.
We do. So this we came out with this site called X-Ray Systems, and X-Ray Systems is where we're going to house all of our internal systems, and we're going to turn those inside out for everyone else to use. So we're really excited about it. It's one of the ways that we're trying to be as transparent as humanly possible. And the first system is a system called Notion Trace, where we actually do activity logging on top of your Notion databases. So things like documents or projects or tasks that you want to monitor over time. Notion Trace is a way that it takes 2 hours to manually set up. Someone on our team needs to configure it for you. It's not a straight SaaS a SaaS product. It's really a suite of automations that allow you to have visibility inside of how the activity in your Notion base is happening. And there's a whole bunch of those types of systems that we're going to be coming out with. So Debrief, the original summary.legal product is on X-Ray Systems. So we'll have Debrief, we'll have Notion Trace, and there's a couple others that haven't quite come up with a name yet on, but we've been using, as part of Slack or part of some other tools that we use that we're really excited just to make open to any of our members that want to use it, or anyone on the interweb that wants to have a system that literally X-Ray uses to run our company. We make that open for anyone to adopt and use.
Awesome. That is, I think it comes back to your thesis, right? That is what you are building are the tools to help people build their business. And I think that is a an area that is hard to automate away right now. I mean, we'll see, right?
It
But
is.
so far, it's hard to automate away because it is not something that enough people are doing where the AI can say, "Oh, I've got models," right?
Yeah.
That is now. a lot of what it feels like, unbeknownst to all of us, Stack Overflow has spent the last 14 years developing a complete set of training data for an AI, because it's basically for every single programming problem, here's every possible solution for it, and scored by the validity of the answer. So cool, right? But that doesn't really exist for workflow automation. It doesn't really exist, I don't think, super well for asking the strategic questions around how to launch a product to make money yet, at least, right? I'll be run a business by an AI one day, but that day is not today.
Right.
It is worth noting on that topic, I am partnering up with Founder Institute. We haven't got a date or anything live yet,
Tell me
but
about
we're
it.
partnering up with Founder Institute to do their first marketing, what do they call it, a boot camp, a deep dive into how to build your very first marketing funnel. And so I will have more info on that. I'll be posting everywhere on my social profiles and everywhere, but it'll be a combination of like a webinar, a course, like a 3 hour long course, and then a review at the end of it, where you get to have me review what it is you build, hopefully provide helpful feedback on it. I did have somebody who bought my book. Here's a fun fact for you. I had somebody who bought my book. He is not a marketer. He had not done marketing before. On his second marketing experiment, had a 3,730% ROAS. That's return on ad spend. By he's spending $30 per sign up and making about $1,000 per actual person who. Oh, sorry, $30 per paid user, about $1,000 on them. So using the ad templates I have put together, by the way, crowdtamers.com, go grab the free ad templates, and the lessons put forth in Validate First, the book, he was able to build a really targeted funnel with only about maybe 9,000 people in the ad campaign who were at all valid. But that's when you've got that narrow a focus, really high return. So he had great results, except he reached out to me and went, Trevor, these numbers are higher than you said they should be. What do I do? And I said, spend more money. Like, you're making so much, spend all the money. Go. He's like, oh, good point. So,
it's funny that was a question.
well, I mean, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
Not a marketer, right?
Yeah,
Results were not as expected. Like when a scientist puts together two things with lead and says, I made gold, and they go, this can't be right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he came back, validated it, but then when I was like, no, spend it all. Like, now, go, all the money you can. He's
Well,
like,
I've got another story for you, and then we both got to jump here.
yes, sir.
I actually had someone also reach out who seen some YouTube stuff, and she ended up reaching out and like talking about all the different things that she did for this law firm. And I was like, oh, law firm, we've got summary legal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that type of a conversation. It turned more so into, this is all the things that I'm doing. And I said, you're a workflow designer. Did you know? Have you like heard of that term? Are you familiar with that? And she's like, what are you talking about? Showing me all these diagrams, showing me all these Zapier automations. I mean, we're talking about like hundreds of steps and things that she's created. Like it was a really, really impressive set. And I was very happy to get an email that said, hey, I've given up my role as sort of an assistant, and I came back as the workflow designer for the law firm. And I was super happy to hear about that. It's just such a great transition for people to make, and just identifying as someone who's designing the way people work, because that's what somebody needs to do.
That is super awesome. And as we know from discussions we've had with some top tier law firms, they desperately can use automations to improve how they're managing. I mean, they have tremendous document inflow, right? What do you do with all of them? Document outflow, validation, all this nonsense. So definitely an area ripe for optimization and improvement. Awesome for her.
Yeah, it's a crazy series out there, but hey, we got it.
All right, you got to go. One shout out. Where do people go find stuff more about you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Tom Nassar, TomNassr, and or anything about X-Ray at xray.tech. All of our content is there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tom. Great chatting. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm trying to end the session.